Hi, I'm Melana of Melana On The Path, A Journey into the Light. Welcome to my podcast series, The Path Channeled Lectures. We continue this lecture series with What Color is My Pain, Part 2. First, let me applaud each and every one of you who braved the risk of leaving your own comfort zone and allowed Chakra to share with you his healing words of love and wisdom on the plight of our very human condition. I was contemplating how true it is that human beings at some point in time are going to have to face unflinchingly this task of healing racial divisiveness and secure a lasting bridge between all races. It simply can't go on the way it is if the human race intends to survive. The thing I find most profound about what Chakra is unfolding in these podcast episodes is the opportunity we are being offered as individual beings to take a conscious and sure step towards a goal that we can never afford to lose sight of. We are each responsible, and we each have the power to change. In Part 2 of What Color is My Pain, Chakra addresses our relationship with love and the spiritual aspect of our human expression. He exposes our own lack of awareness about who we truly are. He reveals to us how our misconception of ourselves has brought us to the place where we are today. If you follow his words and allow them to move your heart, you will begin your own process of discovery and transformation. With each episode, he will show you clearly, deeply, and with unrelenting logic the path that every individual being must walk towards healing themselves, their culture, and the entire human race. The beauty of it, for me, is knowing that, without a doubt, we can do this. Listen, enjoy, and learn.
Every culture has to come into truth with itself. It is not easy. The white culture wants to look to the cultures of color and say it's your fault. If you weren't around, we wouldn't have had to have gone through any of this. We would have just been the only ones. Even though the white culture realizes on some deep level how much the cultures of color have contributed to their own living, their own lives, their own livelihood, how much support they have gotten from the cultures of color. When it gets down to the difficulty of acknowledging and accepting that fact, there is a desire from the broad majority of the white culture that the cultures of color are troublemakers. If they were never born, if they were never around, there would never be any question as to who is the chosen culture, because there would only be one. What the white culture fails to do is to take it a step further and try and realize that there was no way they were going to make it by themselves. They were not equipped to make it by themselves. Were they equipped to make it by themselves, they would have been the only ones born. They needed help. They needed support. They needed guidance. They needed direction. They came with a certain amount of those things, but certainly not enough to run an entire planet. It was not designed that way. It's very difficult for human beings to get down to it in this healing process. You have your cultures of color who turn to the white culture and say, "You, blank, 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 look what you've done. You're horrible. You're like a monster out of control. Look what you've done to this planet. Give us back give us. Make it better for us. Help us. Give us and disappear. Go get a life, but give us ours first. Then go." Well, see, the problem with that is that, number one, the white culture can't give the cultures of color what they need. Oh, yes, they could probably release their hold on the physical manifestations of abundance on your planet, but that would not do and has not proven to have done a whole lot of good to the cultures of color, because that is not what they need first. They do not need access to things. You can be sick and dying and have access to everything possible, every material thing possible, and you will continue to be sick and you will continue to die, because that is not the medicine you need. The medicine that everyone needs, they cannot get it from each other, because each culture has to get it for themselves and then share it with each other. The white culture cannot give the cultures of color love, for if they had love for themselves, they would not have done what they did. The white culture cannot get love from the cultures of color, because if they had it, they would not be in the place that they are now. No one has it to give. Here you are on a planet whose story is about love and no one's got any. How's that for a joke? Everyone has their versions of it. Everyone has portions of an understanding of what it means to love. Everyone has touched in on it, and oh, isn't it wonderful? But there's a real core aspect to love, the real basis and center of love that is missing. You can go around talking about how you have love for this and that and the other, for your country, for your fellow man, for your wife, for your partner, for your children. And to a certain extent that holds true. You love to eat, you love to dance, you love to play, you love to sing. You love to travel, you love to read, you love to love. I do not say this with sarcastic tones, but I want you to realize you talk about love as if you know what it is, as if you are on top of the very expression of it, and yet your planet is dying from lack of it. For so many beings who are so busy loving, there's a great deal of love lacking on your planet. Why? Have you ever stopped to ask yourselves, why? Why is this happening like this? You want love a certain way. You want love and romance. You want love in relationship to food. You want love in relationship to feeling a certain unity with your country and what it stands for, when what it stands for is being out of balance. But when one comes to you and says, there is a spiritual revolution, and it is about love, everyone draws a blank. What does that mean? Can't relate to love beyond a certain perspective that sits with physical reality. You can love all this stuff in physical reality, but when one speaks of a spiritual revolution, loving spirit, everyone draws a blank. What does that mean? When in loving everything on your planet that you love, the planet is still dying, one would hope that you might turn around and say, perhaps we forgot something here. Perhaps we are not loving like we think we are. Perhaps if someone is talking about loving spirit, we should take a look at that. Maybe that's the one thing we've forgotten to love. Maybe that's the element that's missing. You can see the level of sickness that human beings carry, the anesthetized state that you are in, that when someone comes to you and says, look, here is spirit, here is that element that will help heal and bring your perspective of love into wholeness, and everyone starts looking like someone spoke Greek, and no one knows the language. Everyone starts talking about how that's very airy-fairy, or how that belongs to some new age perspective that has nothing to do with anybody but those people who are a little weird. You are so used to being out of balance. You're so used to relying on tools that keep you out of balance, and so used to being confused as to why they don't work, when a hand extends out of the very heavens and says, wait a minute, here, look at this. This is the part you forgot. Everyone wants to try and pretend that they don't understand. Why? Because you're sick. Because you are ill. And because you are used to being sick and used to being ill. And you are dying from it. Healing. Everyone needs to be healed. And love is the medicine. At some point within every human being, getting this is pivotal. Because your money's not going to heal you. Your politics are not going to heal you. Your education is not going to heal you. Your intellectual knowingness is not going to heal you. Being able to travel is not going to heal you. Being able to eat great food is not going to heal you. None of these things are going to be able to heal you because there is a big and essential part missing. And none of those things can address that particular level of the illness. Let me say this to you about who you are. It might help why you need this particular level of healing. I will say this so you understand how it relates to you having to be healed from the very beginning about who you are. I know when you look at yourselves in the mirror and you look at each other, you see physical expressions of self and others. You see bodies that have a certain look to them, and one of the first things that you see is what color they are. So you see bodies, body types, sex, male, female, in terms of the gender. You see old, you see young, you see middle-aged. You experience each other from those different perspectives. You honor the ability of any being to be able to use their minds. So you know you all have brains to some degree that you acknowledge. And the thing that gets to be respected is one's intellectual prowess, one's ability to be intellectually astute, one's ability to have intellectual capabilities. But just to throw a monkey wrench into the works, those capabilities mean one thing if you're white, and those capabilities mean quite another thing if you are a person of color. So there's a dichotomy in that. Even that you honor has a measure of dishonor to it. Nothing on your planet gets to be fully honored. It can only be honored as much as the balance extends, and then when it falls out of balance, so does the honoring. If you look at yourselves as being bodies with intellects, as being a certain color, and a certain age, and a certain gender, and a certain physical expression, if you see yourselves that way and see yourselves as being whole, you are missing something. You are missing the thing that keeps you out of balance. You are not just bodies on this planet, cultures of different color, beings who walk around with intellectual capabilities, beings who walk around with economic capabilities. This is not all that makes up being a human being. The essential part of what makes up a human being has to be acknowledged before balance can occur. Before a human being is a human being is something else. You don't just come here in a body and leave when the body leaves. That is not the entirety of anyone's expression. You come here from somewhere and you leave here going someplace else. There's continuity to your journey. You don't just climb up on the platform and then drop off of it at the end of your life, and that's the beginning and end of you. That is really not so. You start out as a spirit, as one of the unseen in terms of your own physical expression. You start out as a spirit, and the spirit enters the body and takes on the aspect of the soul. And that aspect is actually the essential core part of your expression. Spirit is composed of love. That's all spirit is. That's why it is said that all any of you are is love. That's what you are made of. What is meant by that is that the essential core expression of who you are is love. For spirit is that. When spirit enters into human form and takes on the position in a person that of soul, the idea is for the love to emanate out from the center to every aspect of the being, so that a being, that human being, is the expression of love. Now, if that does not happen, if for some reason that plan gets thwarted, then you have human beings walking around who have no idea who they are. Beings who are out of touch with themselves and the truth. Beings who have literally put their spirit to sleep by not allowing it to express its fullness, express its love within them. You might ask, how can this happen? You have spirit being love, and love is all powerful, and you have spirit within the framework of a human being, and then wouldn't it naturally do what it came to do and take hold and be that expression of love automatically? Yes, it could and it would, except for the fact that one of the things that human beings have is free will. And they can use the free will any way they choose, to allow or not to allow. If a human being feels that they would much rather honor their intellectual prowess and their ability to see from that perspective rather than to deal with what comes through them in terms of love, what love beckons them to do as opposed to what their intellect offers them, if they choose what the intellect offers and decides to ignore what the spirit is saying to them, what the spirit, through their own heart, through their own feelings, how spirit is guiding them, if they choose to ignore that and follow the directions of their intellect, they can do that because they have free will. It is very important to understand that there are certain things that human beings did that created this out of balance state. There are certain responsibilities that have to be taken. It did not just happen. It is very important to understand that the reason this healing has to occur for everyone is because for every one present on your planet now and for generations before, this non-acknowledgement of spirit and this sense of pride and focus on the intellect has kept everyone in a state of sickness, has kept everyone out of relationship with themselves, has kept everyone in a state of needing to be healed through spirit, love being the medicine.